Howdy folks, I'm Gorgeous Gremlin, graciously gabbing to gaunt ghouls.
I'm a scarecrow.
And here are more gaunt ghouls for us to gab to because I'm the gremlin and we have our ghoulish scarecrow here. Let's get started. Alright folks, and our first letter is titled, Am I a Jerk for Lying About My Infertility to Teach My Boss a Lesson? So I'm a 32-year-old female and I started a new job about a month ago. My new boss, in her 50s, a female, is unbelievably unprofessional, and I finally cracked, but now I'm having some regrets. In the interview, there was this weird question about, do you have kids? And are you planning on having a baby anytime soon? That was a weird / intrusive question to ask in an interview, and I can't imagine ever asking a stranger about that. But the new job is teaching preschool, and I just brushed it off as a poorly worded way of asking if I had a child that they would need to have space for in the school. Like if I was planning on starting a family, they would hold an empty space for the infant room so that my child could attend. When I responded that no, I don't have any children, my boss followed up with well, my son didn't settle down and start a family until his early 30s, so you have time. Again, super weird thing to say to a stranger. Well, for the last month, the comments about me starting a family have been relentless. Like at least 3 times a week, my boss, the owner, is asking me when I'm having kids, or intentionally coming into my classroom while holding an infant and telling me how cute this new baby is and don't you want one of your own? She even sent out a staff memo about the quote-unquote joys of motherhood. I'm dating someone, not even engaged yet, and while I definitely see a future with him, our conversations about kids have mostly been, let's just have at least a couple of years enjoying marriage before beginning the stress of a baby, which seems reasonable to me. And it also seems like something that should only concern me, my significant other, and maybe a doctor. My workplace should have no say in it. Now here's where I think I might be the jerk. Yesterday afternoon, Friday, as I was leaving work, my boss stopped me. I assumed that she was only going to tell me to have a nice weekend or remind me that we have no school on Monday or whatever. But no, she said, let me know if you have a little too much fun this weekend so I can save you a room in the baby room. Yes, those were her exact words. I stared blankly for a couple seconds, trying to process what my employer had just said. And out of pure frustration, I responded with, actually, I just found out that I'm infertile, but thank you for bringing up that pain. And I walked out. My plan in the moment was to make her feel awful and realize how absolutely intrusive and out of line her comments were. In hindsight, I don't think that it was okay to make a joke like that because I know a lot of women genuinely do struggle with infertility, and I'm lucky to be able to, hypothetically, have children in the future. So I definitely feel like a little bit of a jerk for that comment. But on the other hand, I feel like someone needed to put my employer in her place because if she continues to have no boundaries, she will undoubtedly ask someone who is genuinely struggling, and I wouldn't wish that pain on anyone's. So am I the jerk for lying about infertility in order to shut up a boss with no boundaries? All right, folks, what do you think?
No, not the jerk. What your boss is doing is not only inappropriate, it's probably illegal. Like in the US, you are not allowed to ask when you're hiring someone if they are pregnant or planning on getting pregnant because then people could be discriminated against for that. This behavior is trampling all over your boundaries. It is not your boss's business whether, like, what intimate activities you're doing with your partner and whether you're having kids or not. Like the boss only needs to know as far as arranging scheduling and maternity leave type of deal.
Yeah, and that's after you're already pregnant.
Yes, after
right?
you're already pregnant. They don't need to know about your plans or lack thereof. And I think the important thing here too is that it is, like Opie was saying, this needs to be shut down before the boss does this to someone who actually is struggling with infertility. Like, it is horrible that the boss did this to Opie, but at least hopefully it will stop now before someone else comes along and has to be subjected to that same interrogation.
Yeah, well, what the boss did here was sexually harass OP, right? This is sexual harassment, textbook sexual harassment. You can't go and joke about someone's sex life like that in a workplace and expect it to come out all right. And she does need to know that that isn't something that is okay to joke about. I mean, this is certainly a very uncomfortable thing to make a joke about. And I think that OP had every right to want to shut this down. I'm usually against lying, and I think that lying is in general not really a great way of handling a situation. But also, I don't know what else OP could have done to put an end to this, other than maybe file a, sexual harassment suit against the employer.
Yeah, well, at this point in time, document. If there is an HR, then definitely file something with HR, because she needs to be reprimanded for this inappropriate behavior. And maybe start looking at other employment opportunities, because this
Yeah.
seems like a not very good environment.
Yeah, it might not be a good environment, especially after this situation, because like if she knows now you can't have kids, then maybe she's not going to want to keep you on board. So again, another good reason why you shouldn't be asking these kind of questions is because you could discriminate one way or another, and those neither way is okay. But let me know what you folks think. So anyhow, take care and good luck. All right, folks, and our next letter is titled, Am I a Jerk for Not Using an Expensive Clothing Fabric to Make My Boyfriend a Curtain? For some context, I have an Etsy shop where I sell various items. I have a specific fabric, cotton spandex, with serial killers on it that I use for underwear. This fabric cost me $52.90 with shipping to purchase. Now, I don't do a ton of sales, and I'm okay with that. It's mostly a hobby and occasionally some extra income. So I've had this fabric for a year or two and only made a handful of items out of it. Well, my boyfriend went into my craft room, searched through my fabric, and grabbed that one. Then asked me to make a curtain out of it for his office window. I explained to him that the fabric is really expensive, and if he wanted me to make a curtain out of it, he would have to pay me for the fabric. He got really offended. And it threw me that he thought that I would just sacrifice this expensive fabric that I make money from to make him a curtain. So am I the jerk for telling him no if he doesn't pay me for it? So, all right, folks, what do you think?
No, not the jerk. It's your fabric.
I mean, that's really the size of it, right? Like this is a pretty entitled ask. It's very expensive fabric, and maybe he doesn't understand how expensive it is, but maybe he does, because he seemed pretty offended that OP wasn't just going to give it to him.
Which, I mean, that's a pretty entitled behavior. Like, again, if you have someone in your life who does like crafting for an income, then like, if you want something crafty for them, give them a fair price for it. Like, not just pay for the fabric, but pay for the labor too.
Yeah. And OP wasn't even going to charge him for the labor, right? They were just going to charge them for the fabric, which I think is a very reasonable request. Maybe they like the pattern on it, but maybe there's a way of getting that pattern printed onto a different fabric so that the
Well, that's not even good. Like, it was a cotton spandex. Like, that's not a good curtain fabric anyway.
No, it's not. Plus, like, the sunlight will make the spandex kind of break down over time too, so it's just not going to be a very good fabric, and it'll fade too, right? So I appreciate his desire to have serial killers for his like office window curtains as much as one can appreciate that, but I think that he really does need to pay OP for this. But let me know what you folks think. So anyhow, take care and good luck. All right, folks, and our next letter is titled, Am I a Jerk for Telling My Wife That She's Making a Big Deal Out of a Joke? So my wife wakes up super early on weekends for some reason, like 7 a.m. early. Our kids, 10 and 7, aren't even up by then for another hour. I would say that I wake up about 20 to 30 minutes after my wife. When I wake up, I immediately get out of bed because I want to get something done. But like for the last 2 weeks or so, I wake up and my wife wants to lay in bed with me until the kids wake up, because we don't spend enough time together, in her opinion, even though we go out weekly if possible. I was fine with it on day 1, but by day 2, I was thinking that I can cuddle with my wife any other day of the week, and I really don't like laying in bed that long after waking up. Well, last weekend, I just got out of bed, and my wife was like, why don't you want to just chill out for a bit? And I told her that I didn't like her that much just to lay in bed with her for 30 minutes. It was a joke. I said it in a joking way, but she seemed to take it personally. She gave me the cold shoulder that day, and I also did tell her that she was being a bit unnecessarily petty for no reason. She's trying to stay as far away from me on the bed as possible now. So am I the jerk? Because she definitely thinks I'm wrong. All right, folks, what do you think?
Yeah, OP, you're the jerk. Where is the humor in this? Like, You're saying to your partner, oh, I don't like you enough to spend time in bed with you. Like, I get you wanting to get out of bed immediately and get things done. And it's fine to communicate that to your partner. You know, you can say that, like, lying in bed makes me feel antsy or whatever. But to be like, I don't like you that much. Like, there's nothing funny about that. And it seems like one of those things that the person says with like a grain of truth. Like, the wife already feels like she's not spending enough time with OP, and OP's like, we have a date night most weeks, as if that's like all the time you should be spending with your partner.
Yeah. Haha, the old ball and chain once again strikes, right? Like, oh, that kind of humor is always the best kind of humor. Haha, the jokes at the expense of your partner, right? No, I mean, those kind of went out of vogue a long time ago, and people, haven't appreciated that kind of humor for a very long time, right? I mean, that's the kind of humor you see in the, like, old cartoons and old soaps and stuff like that and, like, whatnot. But I would say that OP is in the wrong here. Like, you shouldn't be making jokes about how much you dislike your partner.
And picking at what sounds like it's probably become an insecurity, because again, she already feels like she's not spending enough time with him. And so for him to be like, well, I don't like you enough, is going to make her think, is that why we don't spend time together? He just doesn't like me.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that OP really shot themselves in the foot here. Of course, their wife is going to take that personally. It was a very personal comment. You can't just play it off as a joke. I feel like so often these people will play off something that's just a terribly cruel and, a bullying, as like a joke so that they can avoid all responsibility for their comments, right?
Yep.
So I think that OP needs to take a good, long, hard look at themselves in the mirror and apologize to their wife. And hopefully, actually makes real amends and figures out a way of, giving her more time together.
Right. And, ask yourself, why don't you enjoy spending time with her? Not necessarily cuddling, like maybe that's not your thing, but why do you only want to spend one night a week with her?
Yeah. But let me know what you folks think. So anyhow, take care and good luck. Alright folks, and our next letter is titled, Am I a Jerk? An innocuous comment that my date took great offense to. So I am a 27-year-old male, and I've been talking to this woman, a 31-year-old female, for a bit. We met on Tinder. We had our 4th date this past weekend, and we went out for sushi. Our past 3 dates went great, and the 4th one was going great as well. She gets 3 things off the menu, which is totally fine. Get whatever you want. We eat, we talk, and we're having a good time. We finish eating, and she mentions dessert after eating 3 plates of food. And I say, you must be hungry, in a totally normal tone. Not joking, not in a condescending way. A totally innocent, innocuous comment. After I said this, her demeanor completely changed, clearly offended by me saying that. I asked what was wrong, and she said that she was having a good time until I made that comment, and abruptly went into the bathroom. When she came out, she told me that she had called an Uber home. I guess she thought that I was calling her fat, which I wasn't, and she isn't. I was glad that she was hungry when I was taking her out to dinner. She didn't take it that way, clearly. I'll be honest and say that I think this is a huge and frankly ridiculous jump to conclusions on her part, and I really can't fathom someone getting so offended by that. Maybe she had an eating disorder at one point. If so, she never told me. Well, I texted her saying that I'm sorry how the date went. She said that my comment was rude and distasteful, showed my own insecurity, and wasn't interested in me anymore, which is fine because her reaction completely turned me off, to be honest. She presented herself as this girl boss career woman that takes no garbage, but jumps to conclusions like that and is very weird in my opinion, and clearly a result of her own insecurity. I talked to my male and female friends, family, and co-workers about this, and they all took my side. This is Reddit, so I'm prepared to be yelled at, but I want some outside opinions. All right, folks, what do you think?
Yeah, OP, you're the jerk. And I don't know how else you would take that comment. Like, in a society that so heavily polices women's weight and size, to asking or remarking on how much someone is eating is a very loaded thing. And so you may not have meant it in that way, but you have to understand that you don't live in a vacuum. And the generally when a man makes comments about how much a woman is eating or how hungry she must be, it's a subtle dig, a way to put her in her place and remind her that you shouldn't be eating that much.
I think that maybe OP did have the best of intentions here, and maybe, hopefully, they had the best of intentions, right? And if they did, and this was just like a foot in the mouth moment, then they needed to profusely apologize in the moment if it offended her, right? And it clearly did. And it doesn't sound like he's apologized for his comment. He just kind of was like, well, I'm sorry how the date went, right?
Well, that's the thing. And like all his remarks here about how, oh, well, she's insecure, she's so weird. Like, dude, this is the way our culture is structured. Like, a lot of people have been shamed for their eating choices at one point in time or another. A lot of people carry, feelings about that. And even if you haven't, like if someone were to be like, oh, you must be hungry, like when I'm eating a lot of food, like that's going to make me feel weird. And like, why are you commenting on how much I'm eating or how hungry I am?
I don't know. I make comments like that you're hungry sometimes.
Well,
Like,
but like,
I'll
I
be like,
understand how.
oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna be like, because you'll eat your whole burrito,
Yeah.
and because sometimes Amber won't like be able to finish her food all in one sitting, and when she can, it's like, oh, you must have been really hungry about that, right?
Well, but I've lived with you long enough to know that that's like the thing is, we are close enough that I understand what you're saying. I understand there's no malice behind it, that it's a genuine, like,
Yeah,
remark. Whereas, they've been on three
4 dates.
dates. This is their
Yeah,
fourth one. There's not that kind of rapport yet where she's not going to understand that there is no subtext.
yeah, and so I do think that OP may not have meant any subtext here, but they really did need to apologize the moment that it came across as to them as like this kind of comment, right? Because she doesn't know what's going through OP's mind, and OP doesn't even apologize for it. He just is like, well, I didn't mean it certain ways, right? And like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
And I hope OP can take this experience and reflect on it and realize that, it is not necessarily, there's nothing wrong with people who don't want to have their food choices commented on. This doesn't mean that she is, some kind of like, he seems like, I just really don't like his language here around how he talks about her and like, oh, I thought she was a girl boss, but really she's just projecting all these insecurities onto me. Like, take some time, reflect, understand that you don't live in a vacuum. Lots of people have very complicated relationships with food, thanks to society, parents, friends, media.
Well, one more kind of point that I do want to point out is he says, well, she never mentioned that she had an eating disorder to me, right? And this is the fourth date. That isn't really fourth date material to pull out, right?
Right, you don't have to disclose your whole medical history on the third date.
And so I do think like she could have very well had an eating disorder, and it's better to err on the side of caution until you know for sure if somebody's had an eating disorder before commenting on food. I mean, it's good that she has a healthy appetite, right? And that she was eating and comfortable with eating in front of OP, but then OP kind of ruined it by making the comment there, right? So again, like I really hope that OP had the best of intentions here and wasn't making a subtle jab at them, but again, like you can't control how other people feel about your comments. And sometimes it's best to just apologize and explain yourself as opposed to double down and be like, well, I'm sorry how the date went. But let me know what you folks think. So anyhow, take care and good luck. All right, folks, it is tea time. Grab your beverages of choice. I've got some tea right here. And Amber, she has a joke.
What did the ghost say to their vampire paramour?
Oh, well, the ghost said to the vampire paramour, boo! Because the ghost likes to jump out and scare their vampire paramour, but it didn't quite go the way they expected it to because the vampire just turned into a bat and flew away.
I'll always be with you in spirit. And it's National I Love You Day and also Ada Lovelace Day.
Oh, Ada Lovelace with a love in her name. So go find somebody you love and spend your time with them. And I have licorice spice. All right, folks, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for watching. Happy Friday, Junior.
Happy Friday, Junior.
Thanks so much to Amber for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
Amber, we need some kind of moral advice and or guidance, and please have it a hodgepodge for Hodgepodge Thursday.
As a general rule of thumb, don't make personal or invasive remarks to people you don't know very well, whether that's about their fertility or about their food choices.
I like that. I like that a lot. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you all tomorrow.
Bye.